back to episode 4, season 3 of the CIV podcast, where we're exploring mental health. Now, this is scheduled to be our last episode on this part of our series with Dr. Kofi, but we never know. There may be more. If we find that we got to discuss some more things, then we might see about maybe some future seasons where we dive a little bit more into mental health, maybe some different health professionals as well that we could explore that with. But we want to explore today specifically the intersection and the crossplay between faith, spirituality, religion, and mental health and mental wellness. So that's what we'll be discussing for today's episode. And I know we were just talking off camera a little bit about something that is kind of it's got a term now, but it's been kind of an epidemic within our current society, and we're seeing a large resurgence of it. Maybe resurgence isn't the right word, but a large emergence of it within, especially the Western culture. You called it diseases of despair.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit, what are diseases of despair, and what are the things that at play here with that?
So it's a recent term among mental health professionals that we refer to deaths by suicide, deaths by overdose, and deaths by alcohol-related liver diseases. So every year we have about 50,000 people die by suicide.
Wow.
In the United States alone.
Wow.
And Canada have got similar, so I would say 10%. Canada is about 10% of US population. So usually for big data, you look, Canada, about 4,000 people die every year by suicide.
Wow.
And when we come to overdoses, BC has one of the highest overdoses in Canada. And I do not have overdose death rates, but I think we go around in BC alone around 1,008 or so. It has increased drastically from 2015 when we declared a state of emergency in British Columbia due to the opioid crisis. And it has stayed up there. And we also have death by alcohol-related liver damage diseases. If you look at it, they are all similar. They all have got similar background. People who use substance, people who have lost hope, people who are struggling. So they use substance to try and mitigate what they are going through. And if you put all this together, it's now being referred to as disease of despair. And in the US, latest suggest about 270,000 people die by death of despair.
Wow.
That's significant.
Yeah.
That will move, because currently for the adult population, suicide is considered the 11th leading cause of death for the adult population.
Wow.
For adolescents, is the second leading cause of death. Second. That's people aged from around 12 to 29.
Yeah.
Is the second leading cause of death.
Wow.
So if I put all these three disorders together, it will easily move. This is mortality.
Yeah.
There's also morbidity. That is not well captured. Because we know depression is the leading cause of disability across the world. So as I look at depression and severe mental illness takes away 20 years of your life. Yes.
Wow, 20
good years out of your life.
Wow.
One more reason why we should pay attention to our mental health.
Yeah.
I do remember last episode we were talking about this and you were asking me,
like why should we care?
I did not give all this data, but this data is one more reason why we should take good care of our mental health. Yes.
Now, are these diseases of despair, you mentioned, death by liver disease.
Yeah, liver disease.
So suicide is first, and then overdose, and then liver disease connected to alcoholism.
Yeah.
Are the three of those different morbidities like related? Do they have maybe something in common?
They have a lot in common.
Hope.
Yes, hope. Lack of hope. Hopelessness.
Lack of hope.
And helplessness.
Wow.
Yeah. So usually when there are technical ways to assess for suicide. You're assessing for plan. You're assessing for thoughts. You're assessing for how often the thoughts is. You are assessing for protective factors. You are assessing for when it started and whether they've tried it and a whole lot of things. But there are two themes that Dr. Sean Shea, the book you were looking at, the doctor said, hopelessness and helplessness. Let me explain the difference.
Yeah.
Hopelessness is my situation is so bad, nobody can help me.
Okay.
No, I can't help myself. Hopelessness.
I can't help myself.
Yes, I can't help my situation is very bad.
Yeah.
Helplessness is my situation is so bad, nobody else can help me. So, and he has Sean Shea has a way of assessing for suicide that looks at the chronological events, looks at some behavior incidents and stuff like that. But in my reading and in my experience working with patients, I think when you have hopelessness and helplessness is deadly. You definitely try something.
Yes.
Yes. And if you look at the three disorders that we've talking about, not disorders, but these three syndromes or conditions we've spoken about, suicide, lack of hopelessness and helplessness, increases your risk of wanting to try taking your life. Substance use. What are you trying to avoid? What are you trying not to think about? What happiness are you looking for that you will be glued to using substances to make you feel out of body experience? You get me?
Yeah.
The helplessness and the hopelessness still perseveres in that area. So those are the common. There are others that for time I will put it, but I'll just broadly paint this brush with a brush of hopelessness and helplessness.
Yeah, those are the main ones.
Yeah.
Wow. So when we talk about the hopelessness and the helplessness, like is there like degrees in the sense that does one often come first before the other, or are they?
Usually I think people start using substances. I would not say they can be related, but they can, I would say, mutually exclusive. Because people who use not everybody who use substances really want to die.
Yeah.
So it also plays also on the same amygdala, the same pleasure response system. Some people want this out of experience. They want to feel happy for once.
Yeah.
I want to feel happy. I'm tired of thinking about all the trauma that I've been through. I want to feel a little bit of pleasure. Right? It is not. They are related, but I would not say they can be mutually exclusive, because people who use substances, people have got so many reasons to use substance. Some use it to numb their pain.
Okay.
That is the most common one, to numb pain. Some people want to feel pleasure. Some people is just they want to sleep. And as that trajectory continues, and some people just have suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts or whatever they may go through, they feel suicide is the path for them. But when you have depression too, it increases your risk of suicidality. Yes, depression increases your risk, not so much of anxiety, but depression increases your risk of suicidality significantly. Yes, and trauma increases your risk. Trauma, especially childhood trauma, increases your risk of suicide. It increases your risk of substance use significantly. So if you look at the early ACEs, adverse childhood events, and the studies they done, you could tell if you have a score more than 4, I think your risk of suicide increased by 12 times.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
With an ACE score of more than 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now I know for the person who's coming in, it feels like such a heavy topic to start with, right? But part of this is addressing that there's a reality, because we were talking about, cancers and some autoimmune diseases that are connected to that generational trauma. But some of the most common things that you're seeing is these diseases of despair that, especially when it comes to like alcohol or drug use, that can be so commonplace that aren't necessarily for all people an addiction in itself, but they're things that people use casually, constantly. But we're seeing that its use is very heavily connected to death, right? It's very heavily connected to some of the leading causes of death in our current society right now. And so part of why we wanted to kind of talk about that was because we have to have this realistic picture of the experiences of the world and the people around us.
Yeah.
So that as we look towards healing, as we look towards wellness, that we can see that, some of the things that we're addressing don't always look like mental health issues. Like the stereotype, schizophrenia or, psychotic episodes, the things that you might typically associate with a mental health issue or a mental break. Like there are other things that have been so normalized that we don't realize that they're actually a part of someone's depreciating or someone's worsening
Yes.
mental health.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so as we look into that, then, as we kind of move into this next part of our conversation, which is the spirituality and the faith and mental health and wellness, what are some of the practical things then that someone could do to improve their mental health on a daily basis? Like what steps could someone take if they, one, want to begin to work out of that state, or two, prevent themselves from getting into a state like that?
Yeah. So I have a long list, but I'll keep it concise. Let me first mention this, that my solution is based from a very religious space rather than a spiritual space. I want to make that distinction because spirituality is it's not easily measured, or hasn't got a lot of observable features that you can study with science and say this is based on evidence. We know spirituality is having a belief that there's a greater force somewhere. More religion is a higher power where there's organized and structured
and practices, maybe liturgies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to lean more on the religious aspects.
Okay, so before we jump into the the advice and the pieces on that, I want to make that distinction because many times, especially in like a postmodern, post-Christian conversation, and it's what I hear all the time from young people, like, "Oh, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious," right? And we often think of it as this like liberal way or progressive way of describing our connection to faith, but within the context specifically of mental health and wellness and science, that they're not the same. There's a very distinct difference between spirituality and religion. And I was just actually reading about this today, that for them, spirituality is, like you said, it's just the acknowledgement that there is some form of higher power.
Exactly.
And spiritual, one of the examples was like, I think the author was writing that, if you go up on a mountain, you experience a beautiful sunset, that's spirituality.
Yes.
And so spirituality, while beautiful in its own sense, like, yes, we are connected to a higher power and there are beautiful things that we can experience, it is not the same as having a faith that is rooted in practice and tradition, in liturgies.
Thank you.
So for those of us who want to walk in the faith of Christianity, we're not claiming to be just spiritual, we're claiming to be religious.
Exactly. Historically, there was no difference till 40 years ago, and I think it started in the 16th century or so, when René Descartes built his whole duality principle that the mind is different from the body.
Yes.
Fast forward, the church has always played a role in healthcare.
Yes.
And if you look at the history of providing mental health services, the church was a place to go. Whether it's good or bad, because there's been some bad church practices when it comes to treatment of mental health that I do not want to spend too much time on.
Yeah, for sure.
It is based on what they knew. They believe in exorcism. The priest will beat the spirits out of you. People will pray out the spirits with you. You are compelled to fast, or you will starve, and a whole lot. These are all practices. So let's hold that thought. The history, the church has not always been that therapeutic when it comes to mental health.
Yes.
But this is what we know of today.
Yeah.
There are over 1,500 studies, scientific studies, to prove that having religion improves health outcome.
Wow.
And if you doubt what I'm trying to say, check the work of Harold Koenig and two of his colleagues from Harvard. One is a scientist at the School of Public Health, famous School of Public Health from Harvard Public Health School, and he's an expert in research methodologies. He's reviewed all these over 1,800 studies. They've looked at randomized control trials. They've looked at meta-analysis of randomized control trials, and they've come out conclusively to say that if you are religious, your health outcomes is better.
Are better.
And your mental health is better. And this is how Harold Cohen, the lead Dr. Harold Cohen or Professor Harold Cohen, this is how he explains it. Even before you were born, you know about the ACEs.
Yeah.
If even before you are born, your mom will be living healthy.
Yes.
There is a society around her.
Yes.
The church provides that.
Yeah.
The church likes procreation.
Yeah.
So you'll be ushered into, you'll be happily married before you are born. That sets you up for good mental health.
Yeah.
That sets your mom up for good mental health.
Yes.
That sets your dad up for good mental health. The whole community is there for you, supporting you. And in your early years, what does the church preaches? I'm looking at the Adventist church as a point of reference. What does the Ellen White teaching say? Parents should take care of kids right from conception. Your mom is singing, coming to Sabbath school with you, singing with you. Your mom is eating healthy. The church is promoting what is the new start, nutrition, exercise, having water, trusting God, sunlight. All those practices are embedded in the church teachings.
Yeah.
Which gives you good health, gives you good mental health.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned in an earlier episode that the things that we do to give good health are the same things that we do to give good mental health. That is why I do not understand
health, mental health.
Physical
Yes,
health. Yes. But there is more. We talk about sleep. We talk about all those. Let me break it down. Let me first look at it in the developmental before I just open up and talk about all those strategies.
Yeah.
So now from conception, you are welcome
Yeah.
to this world.
Yeah.
There is still love. There is still look at the gifts the community supports you with. Even if you're the first child, there are other children within the religious context for them to play with you. You are not alone. There is support from older people in the community to help your parents, nurture you to be good parents.
Yeah.
So, and as you move on, he talks about your childhood years. There are risky behaviors that the community, the church, and religious practices will not allow you to do. They teach you to respect. They teach you to eat healthy if you're a member of the Pathfinder. All the stuff that you learn. Yes, you take risks. You shouldn't take certain risks. They teach you how to. They teach you some life skills.
Yes.
They teach you how to cook.
Yeah.
All within the religious framework.
Yes.
As you grow, you attend services.
Yeah.
You learn hope because you learn to pray at a very early age that God is capable of doing anything you can ask of. You develop a framework of hope, a framework that protects you from hopelessness and helplessness.
Yeah.
And as you develop, you learn out your pleasure. There's ways to have pleasure that doesn't involve you touching substances. There's a way to have pleasure. Music is therapeutic. Throughout, before conception to you are now a child, music has always been part of your daily life. You learn how to sing. You come to Sabbath school, you learn how to sing.
Yep.
And if you are most church, you learn how to play an instrument, which is a lifelong skill. It is a resilience activity that the world does not have easily. If you look at the training of people who are supposed to be wealthy or leaders, a big part of their training is music. A big part of their training is oration. You learn that in church for free without knowing it.
Yeah,
You are
yeah.
asked to memorize the memory verse and come and stand in front of the class and present a memory verse.
Yeah.
You are asked to read the mission appeal or tell a story. That is learning oration.
Yeah, yeah.
Music. So as we look at the trajectory, the developmental process, now you are a teen. What is some of the risky behaviors is around sex. You are learned that you keep yourself, you do not steal, you are time for you to get married.
Yeah,
You
healthy
learn
boundaries.
a lot of boundaries.
Yeah.
And these boundaries have been instilled when since you were young. You learn to respect others. You learn so many things that the religious society provides. Now in your adulthood, the chances of you being promiscuous, the chances of you even being in divorce is less because the church,
Yeah.
you learn to talk things over. There are sessions within the church that equips you to be a good parent and a good adult, and also learn how to build your marriage. As you approach your old age, you have children that are serving you. You have other old folks around that you can socialize with.
Yeah.
So throughout the developmental spectrum, every part of the church promotes good health and good mental health. That is what Harold Cohen summarized I wish I had the graph for you to actually look at how every stage of human development, the church plays a significant role.
Yes.
And if I look at the Adventist church, we have so much resources to help us live very healthy.
Yeah.
Very, very healthy.
Yeah.
We talk about the blue zone. The only blue zone in the US is Loma Linda.
Yeah.
Predominantly predominantly Adventist community.
Yeah.
So that is, in a nutshell, some of the things. Now let me pick out about 10 of these things and share.
Before we get there to the 10, I think it's worthwhile saying that this is one again, we want to emphasize that this is like researched, like well-researched
very
data
well-researched.
that proves that connection to church and to religion specifically, not just the intangible conceptual spirituality, but the actual, like, I don't want to say dogmatic, but the framework of church and religion improves mental health.
Yes. And let me give the quote. Handbook of Religion and Health by Dr. or Professor Harold Koenig. Koening.
Yeah.
I think the book is about $200. It's a reference book. But
it's expensive,
Yes, it has over 1,800 studies.
Wow.
Scientific studies.
Yeah.
Most of them from Harvard.
Yeah.
That have measured religion as an outcome. And religion you can measure. Usually the outcome is number of times, or the research has been number of times somebody worships. And they've done it for young people, for older people, for nurses, for professions. And in conclusion, if you are religious, your health outcome is better. And he talks about, even in his latest book, about faith.
Yeah.
And how faith is so important. Because for you to be religious, you must have faith.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that, that doesn't mean that you're immunized from mental health issues, right? It means that you have a better trajectory, you have a better possibility of outcomes. And we know full well that, there are cases where, groups or specific churches or leaders that, we're all fallible. We're not perfect. That can cause harm, that can cause mental health issues in certain people. But, when we are encountering religion in its healthy form, and not just I want to make sure that it's not just an idealized form. It's we're not just saying like, oh, if the church was perfect, then this was what you would experience. We're saying that all of these, this framework that has been established through the church and through religion is what produces these better outcomes. And my prayer is that, if you're listening, that you would find a healthy community, that you would find a place that can nurture you and grow you and can give you not just better outcomes, but the best outcomes.
Yes.
Right. That's what we hope to do here at Church in the Valley too, through having conversations like this. But I wanted to make that distinction that we know we're not, like you said in last episode, we're not, brushing over that fact that there are people that have traumas connected to church. There are people that have experienced mental health issues connected to church and that are still struggling with it. But we want to say that, the church is not perfect.
Thank you.
And what God has given us is intended to produce the best results.
Thank you. And even in our sin, we can have an Acts 2 church.
Yes.
So one of the things he calls out is the difference between moral injury, and another term that he uses that does not come readily to me, that there could be moral injury from just being in the church and, for instance, seeing somebody suffer that we pray for, we had faith, we did all our religious practices, but that didn't work. There could be some moral injury there. Yes, even with moral injury, these practices still gives us hope.
Wow.
So I'm thinking about members of the prayer ministry.
Yes.
That hear a lot of traumatic situations.
Yes.
Somebody are praying for somebody to get healed from cancer, a baby to heal from cancer. It can be, they can get some they can acquire some moral injury from praying so hard and not getting the desired response. Praying for this mom that is in an abusive situation and the abuser gets away and the victim passes away. It can cause moral injury. But even within that moral injury, the tools that is embedded in religion and faith still holds and can produce
great value for mental wellness.
For mental wellness.
All right, so let's get to those 10 things that you were noting.
Okay, my top 10. Yeah. I'm not saying this is the only one. Yeah. These are my top 10. I'll start with exercise. This is in no particular order. I'm just throwing a top 10, so please help me count. I'll start with exercise. Exercise is huge. There's actually a TED Talk by Dr. Wu. I've forgotten her first name, but she's a neuroscientist and talks about the benefits of exercise. And there's other theories about how exercise, because under stress, we're born with stress. Our body produces cortisol, adrenaline. That adrenaline must go somewhere. It causes a lot of inflammation. Most of our cancers are inflammatory. Autoimmune disorders are inflammatory. Diabetes are inflammatory. So there's inflammation everywhere. Yeah. How do we reduce inflammation? Exercise helps, because when you exercise, your body produces also hormones that helps reduce inflammation. It also helps process with all the adrenaline and cortisol going around your body. It can help your body to break it down quickly and take it out of your system. So exercise. Then the next question is, how much exercise does one need? I think the neuroscientists suggested about 30 minutes of brisk walking at least 3 times a week. But if you can do more, I would say do it. I can speak about what I have been through physically. My work is very stressful. Although it's my livelihood, it's my job. Your job can be very stressful. I enjoy it, but the moral distress remains. Yeah. So I started exercising regularly. And I can tell you, I've walked through the valley of shadows by just exercising. Yes. Yeah. There was a point in my life, my doctors asked me, was about to do a surgery. I had plantar fasciitis. That's an inflammation of my plantar in the area. I could not walk, especially in the mornings. I did not stop exercising. And after about 3 years of exercising, to the glory of God, I can walk. I didn't need surgery. Wow. I don't need any ortho parts in my shoes. Wow. So I cannot overemphasize the need for exercise. I'll go to my next one, sleep.
Sleep, number 2.
Yes. There is also, I like giving tech talks because it's a summary of someone's life's work. Verbally, and it'll give you other resources you can read about their research work. So once you listen to them, you can move around, look at their research studies, to go to academia.org and all those things and download their studies, or Google Scholar,
Yeah.
and get all their written work and read it yourself. So Russell Foster, a neuroscientist, spends most of his life looking at sleep. Actually, when I was Yale too, the Yale has a center for sleep. And they look at the impact of sleep on all health outcomes.
Yeah.
If you sleep well, even your heart condition can improve just by sleeping. And one of the first things that actually you lose in your illness is sleep. I cannot overemphasize the need for sleep. Our generation is a sleepless generation. We don't sleep.
Yeah.
Most people are getting away with 6 hours, 7 hours of sleep. We get awake by our alarm clock. It's not helping us.
Yeah.
Our kids are not sleeping. Most teens are sleeping 5 hours a night, and they need 10 hours a night. Are we surprised that they've got high suicide rates? And high disease of? So you see, as you look at the science, you see, sleep is very important.
Yeah.
And it's having a regular pattern to sleep. Sleeping in a cool, dark room helps you to sleep. Taking gadgets out of the room. This blue light just before you go to bed keeps your brain active and takes time for you to calm down. Not eating beyond a certain time. If you use coffee, do not use coffee. And anybody who thinks uses alcohol to help them sleep, research shows that that is not a good way to sleep. You are not actually sleeping.
So don't use coffee after a certain time.
Yes. Preferably, if you can take that off.
Yeah.
That is the best. Ideal, but coffee is not a good thing for sleep.
Yes.
So I think we should do a whole session on sleep and its impact, because I see it increases. Not sleeping actually increases your risk of a lot of neurological diseases, including dementia.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Because your brain cleans up.
Yeah.
This is by Jeff Ilf, another neuroscientist. The cleaning up of your brain, like how the kidney does to your blood, only happens at night.
Wow.
So if you lose sleep, there's accumulation of beta amyloids, and this accumulation of beta amyloids increases your risk of dementia.
Yeah.
So sleep, we've mentioned sleep, we've mentioned exercise.
So sleep.
Yes.
I want to ask, and you're talking about not just quantity of sleep, you're talking about
quality of sleep, both.
Yes. So if I think, for example, if I go to bed like at 1 a.m. because I'm up doing whatever, and I get 14 hours of sleep, that's still not necessarily quality.
It is not necessarily quality.
Yeah. Is there an ideal time?
The ideal time is there's a circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
I talked about rhythms.
Yes.
I hear the best time to sleep is at night. There are some people who cannot sleep at night. They sleep during the day. If you're a nocturnal, you are not a nocturnal. You're in, I don't know how to say now. Okay, nocturnal are those who work at night. Yeah. But go to WHO. Working at night is considered, if you increase your risk of cancers, it's a carcinogen. And when I started working in healthcare, an old man called me one day and told me that I should save up for the extra money that I get paid at night. I will need it to buy my medication when I get old.
Wow.
It only occurred to me later on in life, when I started having some issues, an autoimmune disorder.
Wow.
Yes. WHO has listed working at night or night work as a carcinogen.
Wow.
Nobody gives you money for free.
Yeah.
So for any company to just give you money to work, more money. We give you more money to work at night. It's not for fun.
Yeah. It's hazard pay.
Yes, it's hazard pay.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So there's so much research on sleep. Ideally, we shouldn't be waking up with an alarm clock.
Okay.
Yes. If you sleep and you have to wake up with an alarm clock, it startles you.
Yeah.
That's not good sleep.
Yeah. You
Sleep
haven't built
till
a good
you
rhythm.
wake up. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Sleep till you wake up. And it means going to bed early. The worst thing that could ever happen is actually having gadgets in the room. So in our household, we have a curfew, and it's been a big thing. And I learned it from somewhere. I was in a public venue,
Yeah.
and they were discussing they don't have a phone in their room unless you are a security officer, firefighter, or something that you need a phone. Now your nature of your work need a phone. Everybody in our house, we charge our phone in our bedroom, in our bathroom. Yes, turn it off, put it down.
Yeah. Wow, that's good.
And I can tell you, I've got teen kids. 2 a.m., 1 a.m., they are receiving texts.
Yeah.
3 a.m., they are receiving texts, and they are going to school the same kids the following day.
Yeah.
We will talk about sleep. I wish I could talk more about sleep because I've seen it. I have seen it.
Yeah.
I used to work in adolescent psychiatry. There was a kid, behaviorally, it was so difficult to manage. We have security to manage this kid. One day I decided to work. This kid does not sleep. I was working night. Told them, tonight this guy must sleep early.
Yeah.
I will. I told security my plan to get this guy in. He listens to rock. No, heavy metal. All night.
Yeah.
I took it out. Tonight you're not listening to. He fought me. They are calling the parents. I'm not picking the call. I'm busy. Well, he ended up going to bed, I think, around 1 a.m.
Yeah.
after all his behavioral health crisis.
Yeah.
This kid was a different kid the following morning. Everybody was asking what medication did I give him. I did not give him any special medication. His normal medication he took.
Yeah.
But that behavioral adjustment of not listening to heavy metal.
It's quality sleep.
Quality sleep. Let's move on. We are only 2.
Yeah,
Let's
we gotta
move
go.
on.
3.
Let's talk about nutrition is very important.
Yes.
I believe nutrition is, but I will not spend too much time on nutrition.
Yeah.
We know all the healthy foods. Eat them often. Eat them regular. More fresh, the better it is.
Yeah. Different colors.
Different colors.
Yeah.
Yes, we're not going to spend money. Having gratitude.
Gratitude.
Gratitude every morning. And it also aligns with our religious practices.
Yes.
Can
Yeah.
you imagine reading a psalm every morning?
Yeah.
Psalm
Praises.
of praise.
Yes.
And even spending time to thank God for today, for seeing me through the night. Not everybody wakes up every morning. A colleague of mine has been joking with me that he never appreciated breath till COVID. And he saw people struggling to breathe.
Wow.
Having gratitude is a resilience activity. It's good for your mental health.
Yes.
A community of faith believes in gratitude.
Yeah.
Having that 4. Where am I now?
Or gratitude is 4.
Okay. Let's go to 5. Volunteering.
Yeah.
7. There is something that research have found that when you serve people, it gives you joy. And not only are you helping, there's something within you that makes you feel better. Even for people who have depression, chronic depression, serving people is known. And it lines. I'm not saying all this because I'm religious or what I'm saying is based on science, but it somehow aligns with religion. Service. I'll talk then about music.
Number 6.
Music, making music, or music is just therapeutic.
Yeah.
So many examples, and our religion also believes in music.
Yeah.
What music am I referring to? Well, it depends on where you are, what you've been brought up on, and if your whole ordinance of worship is around music. Music is a huge tool.
Yeah.
It can send somebody from 0 to 100. I have seen it with the story I shared about the little boy and where I was working. There's so many times in my life that when I'm praying, because of my situation, I cannot pray. All I can do is sing.
Yeah.
Making music, I was alone living in Idaho when I began to learn how to play my guitar. And I can tell you, I've never felt so calm Never felt so calm. Music is a huge tool.
Mm-hmm.
Let's now move on to
Number 7.
yes, religious practices.
Okay.
The praying,
Yeah.
the reading of scripture
Mm.
are built in there. That comes also in meditation or reflection. That is a resilience activity.
Yeah.
These are tools we can use.
Yes.
Praying for faith.
Yes.
Lord, help my unbelief. Lord, my faith is as small as a mustard seed.
Yeah.
But I do know you are here, you hear me, and you can do many wonders.
Yeah.
It gives hope.
Yeah.
I'll talk about laughter.
Before we get to laughter, I want to say something about meditation because I don't know if you know, but especially like in maybe more conservative circles too, meditation tends to be a villainized trigger word for people, right? And I want to make the distinction that when we talk about meditation within a Christian context and setting, we're not talking about Eastern meditation necessarily, right?
Yes.
Like at least from a Christian perspective, right? Within the practice of Eastern religion and New Age religions, meditation is always about emptying the mind of all things, and it's connected to the whole concept of being united to the supreme soul and the deity. You want to empty your mind and thoughts so that you become one with the universe, but that's not Christian meditation. Christian meditation from a biblical perspective is not to empty the mind, but to rather to fill the mind with God. So like you're talking about, like prayers, like meditating on the word of God. That's what the Psalms say. Meditate on the word of God, right? So I just wanted to make that caveat. When we're talking about meditation,
even
it's
when
different.
we talk about every one of these things, anything that is good for the soul,
yes,
the devil has a way of
twisting it and perverting it to something else.
So this very same music that I mentioned, that it can be therapeutic, it can be this, it can be that. There's also music that can turn you into something else. There was a point in my life that I sampled religions. And one of the places that I stormed and spent significant amount of time is in the Rastafarian movement.
Yeah.
And not some of the lyrics and rhythm can easily send you to places that you do not want to go. So being aware that everything exercise. So you love exercise, you like working. There are some exercises that you must be careful.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, because it's all contextual, right?
Exactly.
Like especially with music and stuff too. That it's depending on the context in which it's used. Because music is such a powerful tool. It depends who's wielding that tool.
Yeah.
Right. Because I know of cases where, like when we think of things that are wholly melodic or whatever, we might think of classical music. But I've heard of cases where like satanic churches will use Bach and Beethoven in their liturgies.
Yes.
And I heard of a story one time. It's kind of a funny story in the sense that there was a gentleman who came out of a satanic church and wanted to go to a Christian church. And so when he stepped into that Christian church for the very first time, one of the songs that was like a closing song was a Bach or Beethoven theme that was just being played, and the whole church was loving and enjoying it. But this man just immediately ran out of that church, and he's like, I just came from that, right? He just came from a satanic church that was using that liturgically, and so he's like, I can't go to this church because it works that way. But yeah, there is definitely a contextual, subjective use to music that depends who's wielding it.
Thank you.
That has the power to change us. Yeah.
Thank you. Laughter. Talk about laughter. Laughter is medicine. And I lean on the work of this journalist, Norman Cousin, who was given, it's a small book. Norman Cousin was given about 6 months to live because he had ankylosing meningitis or something. And he laughed himself to good health.
Wow.
Yes. So he could not move. The nature of the illness is you get stiff, and it takes you out. He could not move, lying in bed, and his friend cracked a joke. Cracked a joke, and he realized, his fingers started moving when he listened to the joke or so. So a friend got him Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
Those to play around the background.
Yeah.
And with time, he loved himself from illness to wellness.
Wow.
So laughter is a good medicine. And what a great place to be in a religious sect. You know what? I was During my studies, I spent some time in New York, where the area, a lot of Jewish folks with their long robes, they look very serious.
Yeah.
But after Sabbath or around when sun sets, these people party so hard.
Yes.
And my
yes.
neighbor who was one, he
Yeah.
asked me, I asked him, so what do you do after church? I see you guys are so happy. He says, you a lot of party, like we have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
but when you see them walking around with their robes, they look very serious, and laughter is medicine. Laughter is huge medicine. Do not anticipate, underestimate the power of laughter. Am I at 10 yet?
No, we're at 8. So
We are
yeah,
at
9
8.
and 10.
Okay. What else will I add as one of my top ones? Actually, I'll put meditation and mindfulness into the same. I know I can add mindfulness easily as one.
Yeah.
But mindfulness is more of a modern concept of that's based on this Eastern background, Eastern religion background. But I see when I talk about mindfulness, I'm thinking about aligning yourself to God's will. Reflecting on God's mercies and God's grace.
Yes.
Praising Him
Yeah.
in the quietness.
Yes.
Praising Him for who He is and what He continues to be. So mindfulness, I know I see mindfulness as one. And what else? Actually, there are two more. One I'll just mention and not spend too much time on it is sex. Yes. In our church, I know in most religions, it's not seen as therapeutic.
Yeah.
This is sex within the
context of
concept of,
marriage.
thank you.
Yes.
We have to add, let's remind me to add the context.
Yes. Yeah. Context is key.
Context is key.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have improved sleep with it, increased immune system, restored tension within marriages.
Yeah.
So many benefits.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm at 10 now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I would say these are my top 10.
Well,
Maybe
let's add because I think let's call it 9. Let's call sex 9, and then we'll do 10 because I think I know what 10th we can add, and it'll segue
Yes.
to our next question. But I think like talking about sex specifically, this is not something I want to dive too much into because this could be a whole series of conversations. But I remember I was reading it's Gabor Mate and I'm forgetting the other doctor's name. He wrote "Hold On to Your Kids." They co-wrote it together. It's 2 doctors, and then
what is a psychologist or something?
yes, that's the psychologist. And I remember distinctly, I was listening to the book, and they were talking about sex within that context of how it can cause traumas and some of the things that contribute to poor mental health. And again, this is not a religious person. This is not a person that necessarily subscribes to the Christian concept of sex within the context of marriage. But they were talking about how sex outside of marriage is actually just so detrimental to your health, especially when it comes to young people. When it comes to people under a certain age, that there is a certain level of psyche fracturing that occurs when you are participating in sexual relations far younger than you should be, and that there is an element of yourself that is given. And again, these are non-Christian authors that are writing this, that is given to someone that fractures you in a way that is not fractured when you're participating in sex within the concept of marriage. And I remember that another study too was done in, I think it was Denmark, in Europe, that tracked couples that cohabitated before marriage. They lived together and slept together, and they found that people that did cohabit had a far higher instance of divorce and separation than couples who did not cohabit prior to marriage. And so there, again, like it's not just this fuddy-duddy old religion style that the society wants to paint, but there's actually scientific backing behind this idea that no, sex within the context of marriage actually is better for your mental health. It's better for your mental wellness. It's better for positive marriage outcomes.
I have a whole, it's just like sleep. I have a whole thing to talk about sex. And even there are parts of sex that even that affection, that hold,
yes,
that hug, It's not just the intercourse, but the hug and other things that are associated with the whole romance.
Yeah. The intimacy, the
Yes,
emotional
intimacy,
connection.
yes, can be very therapeutic. And let me say this, because of stigma and biases, sometimes from our religious setting, people do not seek professional help. So far, I've not mentioned it. So let me please put it in here. There are times that you will need a professional to help you for your mental disorders. There is a lot of therapy out there that one can you can get a Christian counselor who understands your religion and will integrate your. So I was speaking with, is it Oprah?
Yeah, Opal.
Yeah, about this. Sometimes you need a professional who understands, because most secular therapists may not bring in your religion unless you bring it in. But from somebody with a Christian background will integrate from the beginning, because there are boundaries that Dr. Harold Cohen also suggests, that do not force your religion or ask the patient to be, don't force your religion on the, or don't force the patient to be religious.
Yes, yeah.
But if you do a good intake, a good assessment, and during your assessment, you check for things that brings meaning to the patient, you easily capture religion. There are things that, yes, you can also capture other things like culture.
Yeah.
Because my definition for mental health, culture is part of it.
Yes.
If you look at the DSM-5, which is the classification of disorders, culture, the significant thing, there's a whole cultural tool to it, because formerly we were diagnosing people without considering or carefully integrating what culture can
cultural
be context to it. So there will be need to take, and there's so many therapies out there. Some include medication. Sometimes church folk have not been very interested in medication.
Yeah.
But sometimes, due to hormonal imbalances, biological factors, you may need to have to take some medications to stabilize you whilst you receive treatment.
Yeah.
There's so many treatments out there.
Yeah.
Many music treatment, occupational treatment, CBT. There's integrated religion, CBT.
It's
There's
cognitive
EMDR,
behavioral therapy.
cognitive behavioral therapy.
Not necessarily the marijuana stuff.
No.
Yeah. That's CBD.
We will talk about marijuana at another time.
Yeah.
I know people have mentioned, but marijuana is natural. Even within the Adventist church, actually, one family doctor friend was asking me, what do I think about her prescribing cannabis for somebody within the church? I gave my opinion. Because at some point in time, I did a whole assignment on THC CBD. And yes, it has got therapeutic
properties and use.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you need to prescribe it. And there's very little evidence on when to use it and for how to use it and how to dose it. Some have used it for cancer, and it has worked with them for pediatric population, for lack of appetite, for side effects, and it has worked for them. But I would say caution. It's a full potent medication. Do not play around with it and use it.
Don't take it lightly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because holistic health, like when you talk about medication, holistic health recognizes that not all things need medication, but to discount the need for medication is also unhealthy.
Yes.
When we're talking about holistic health, right?
Yes.
So we've talked about all these elements of how to improve mental health, how to have proper mental wellness, and the reason I say let's call sex 9 is because you said mindfulness and meditation can be grouped together, but I think 10, if we can call it something, if I can suggest maybe rest.
Yes.
Rest.
Yes.
Because something that's so key for us as Seventh-day Adventists, right, is the concept of rest.
Yes.
And so I wanted to ask that Sabbath, right? What role does Sabbath play in mental health and mental wellness?
Huge. Sabbath, you know what? I think some people have this notion. You work for 3 months and you save and you go for somewhere to holiday. Or you work 2 weeks in a row, do all night shifts, and take 2 weeks, then you sleep for 3 days. The body doesn't work that way.
No,
The body doesn't work that
it
way.
doesn't. It doesn't
So,
bank up rest.
exactly.
Yes.
Any neuroscientist will tell you,
Yeah.
if you do not sleep 3 days, the damage done to your skin cannot be repaired
It's done.
with the 4th day or
Yes.
full day sleep.
Yes.
So having the Sabbath is God's giving way to remind us to pause, to rest and sleep.
Yes.
God knows after 7 days, if you continue doing what you are doing, you are digging your grave. You need to pause and sleep and delight. I think it's John Mark that gives 4 meaning to the Sabbath. He says it's worship, it's a delight. I've forgotten the 2.
Yeah.
But it's what I do remember is
We'll
worship.
we'll
and
link
delight.
it. We'll link it in the
No,
description.
it's rest.
Yeah, rest, worship, delight.
And the last one is I say you stop. You just stop. The first one is stop. Just stop. Pause.
Pause.
No, actually, didn't you say pause? Stop whatever you're doing
Yeah.
and delight in God's given day of rest.
Yeah.
Yes, you need it. I cannot. Yeah, and I know sometimes every good thing. I know some people have made the Sabbath a legalistic way that they do not enjoy it.
Yes.
But when I looked at the Sabbath, as pause, no, stop, rest, delight, and worship. I do like that. What the Sabbath brings. I look forward to it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I was there was a video that was circulating. I remember around Adventist circles, like a year or so ago, and it was by, I remember distinctly. It was by Josh Howerton. He's a pastor of LP Connect. I forget what church it is in the U.S., but not a Sabbath keeper. You know, goes to church on Sunday. But he was presenting this concept of the Sabbath to his congregation, and he was saying that one of the studies that he found was that on average, people who took a regular Sabbath lived 11 years longer than the rest of the population. And then when he calculated, well, if what is the average lifespan, how many Sabbaths does that equate to? And he was saying that the average lifespan of Sabbaths, if you take a Sabbath every week of your life, that the amount of Sabbaths add up to approximately 11 years.
Wow.
And so he's saying when you take those 11 years of Sabbath, you get an additional 11 years of life on average.
Yeah.
And I think there's this beauty that can be missed with, you know, Sabbath keepers like Adventists that, like you said, turn it into a legalistic thing.
Yeah.
That make, like, you know, like Jesus says, a burden. Make the Sabbath more a burden than a blessing. And I remember another study that I was reading that said that when, you know, they were gauging Sabbath and its effect on people, and they were saying, you know, there's like all these benefits that come with Sabbath, you know, with mental wellness and health outcomes, and they were talking about that they also measured people who have a regular practice of Sabbath, and that they found that those who have a negative approach to Sabbath, who view it as a restriction or as a burden, they didn't use the term legalistic because it wasn't a religious paper, but they found that people who had you know, that restrictive approach to Sabbath not only lost the positive benefits of Sabbath, but actually regressed and had worse outcomes than people who didn't take a Sabbath to begin with.
You know, building communities and building a body of faith requires time.
Yes.
And you have to carve out time.
Yes.
And what a good way to actually to build community than to do it on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
You stop.
Yeah.
Look for community. Spend quality time with community. Put the phone away.
Yes.
Be present for each other.
Yes.
I was it's John Mark still on talking about Sabbath makes mention of a couple of centuries ago. I think in France they tried doing a 10-day week.
Yes.
And how it ended.
Yeah.
It didn't take long.
Yeah.
So our body, everything in our world
Yeah.
moves on a rhythm.
Yes.
And one of those rhythms is what God instituted in the Garden of Eden for us.
Yeah.
That every 6 days, after every 6 hard days of work, we take a day of rest where we stop, we rest, we delight, and we worship. Yes.
That's powerful.
Powerful.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on our time, so
Yes.
maybe let's take the last 5-6 minutes, and I want to ask this final question: as a mental health professional and as a church elder, how would you like to see your church, not just CIV, but like your Christian faith, your Adventist church? How would you like to see that integrate faith and mental well-being?
In every aspect of the way. When I was reading with all the research that has been done by the Duke Center for Religion and Mental Health, and as somebody who has grown up in the Adventist Church, knew a little bit about the writings of Ellen White, I think we are blessed with the knowledge to actually integrate mental health and mental well-being and our faith in everything we do. Right from even before kids come into this church.
Yeah.
We have the setup ready for them. They have parents who are aware of their trauma and who help them grow in the Lord.
Wow.
We have a community of church members that will help these kids grow up in the Lord. We have a community of church members that will protect them, nourish them, nourish their parents so they can nourish them, teach them to play music, teach them life skills. They have friends that come from similar backgrounds, that they grew up with the fear of the Lord, with hope that God is in charge. Re-emphasize their faith. They grew up to be wonderful teens, good adults, and our older folks in the church are taken care of by the younger ones.
Yeah.
They have company. They are not dying in loneliness. As I said, 1 in 2 adults in North America are lonely. And being lonely is compared to smoking 15 sticks of cigarettes a day. It increases the risk of cancer, increases the risk of autoimmune disorders, increases of risk of so many things. So we look at the whole developmental spectrum. We have all the tools. Let us continue to have this discussion. Let us continue to educate ourselves, because sometimes we are dying because of lack of knowledge. And there's a book by Dr. Soyinka, and he talks about faith, religion for faith communities, and he talks about the need for us to integrate in everything we do. Because what's the great controversy? Whoever has your mind has you.
Yeah.
If your mind is not right, how can you worship God? How would you even make meaning to a sermon? How can you make meaning to a music?
Yeah.
Your mind is the most prized possession. Whoever has it has you.
Yeah.
So if we can focus or help develop a mindset based in the Lord, we will have healthy communities, healthy families, healthy individuals that are working towards Christ's second coming, because we do not know when he will be coming.
Yeah.
He may come any day, but until he comes, we must be ready so he can take us home.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my prayer, that we integrate this in every aspect of that. And with doing that, we also exercise or extend grace and mercy to others who have not found their strides.
Yes.
Because everybody wants to be in that place where they will have their sanity.
Yeah.
We know about Loma Linda. A lot of people have moved to that blue zone because they want to be healthy. And it is not just what they eat. They keep the Sabbath. They have safe communities.
Yeah.
They have access to, sometimes I've forgotten this. Is it Sarah who says prevention is better than cure? If disease is painful, if you can, we do health promotion, prevention, before we talk about treatment. Treatment is always expensive.
Yes.
But if we promote good health, talk about good, I'm not saying diseases will not, it will come.
Yeah.
But even in an unfortunate time of death, we die at peace with the Lord. I have been fortunate to meet people who are dying, and they are dying so happy.
Wow.
because they can say, my work on earth is done.
Wow.
Lord, give me rest.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Kofi, thank you so much
Thank you so much.
for sharing on these conversations. It's been an awesome journey to be able to converse with you, talk about something that's near and dear to our hearts, and getting to do it in the context of faith. I think has been just such a special journey. I think we were talking about this earlier, that I've seen you a lot this week, and I'm glad for that.
Yes,
So,
yes. No, it's been a pleasure. It's been
Yeah.
a pleasure, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, we're happy
And
to have
I
you.
want to also thank the church leadership for actually committing time and resources to this. It's
Yeah.
very important.
Yeah, we're blessed to be at a church that that allows us to do stuff like this, and that has a heart for not just baptisms and numbers and seeing people, but has a heart for people growing as healthy whole disciples, right?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Well, we want to thank you so much for tuning in to this, which is at present the last part of our mental health episodes in our series on these topics. But we're looking forward to more conversations as we talk about different aspects of discipleship, different aspects of what it means to be a healthy, whole Christian living in this world today. So we want to just encourage you to tune in to more episodes to come. And if you haven't seen the other episodes on our mental health yet, those are already out, so you can go check those out on the different platforms. You can also see season 1 and 2, where we explore faith journeys and some of the different stories of how God has changed lives in this community. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Hey, we want to thank you for tuning in to the CIV podcast, where we get to explore different stories and topics related to faith and spirituality. As you consider how you give this year, we want to encourage you to give to discipleship and evangelism. That not only helps us with our podcast, but it also helps us with all the amazing things that we're doing here at CIV, like the workshops, the trainings, the classes, and the programs that are aiming at creating holistic, healthy disciples who make disciples. Thank you so much for supporting our ministries here at CIV. And as always, don't forget to love God, love people, and serve the world.